Hi folks, this is Dragon. That's another video on some bone craft or bone carving. This is a shoulder blade off a cow I got from the local butcher. It wasn't a fully matured cow because along this edge here there was still quite a bit of cartilage along the top here as well. So had to do quite a bit of cleaning up on this using rocks and files and that sort of thing to get meat and tissue and that sort of thing off. So it's cleaned up pretty well. The idea is for the comb is this part here will be the handle. This bottom part here is where the teeth will be cut, I'm hoping. So we'll see how it goes. The top of this bone here is very thick, so that'll form the spine of the comb itself, give it some extra strength. I think the problem I'm going to run into is actually cutting the teeth of the comb along here. Now unfortunately I've got to use a hacksaw blade for this. I'm looking at some rocks. I've got to order them in because there's just nothing around this area at the moment that'll do the job. So we'll see how we go with the hacksaw and move on from there. Okay folks, I just cut that out of the main shoulder blade. Come up pretty well. The idea is that's your handle there. Across the top will be the spine of the comb, and then I'll attempt to cut the teeth down to that, roughly about that pencil line. This end here I'll probably straighten up a bit, and the handle, it feels quite comfortable, but what I might actually do is just dress it up a bit, actually make it a bit more round or something, and certainly take these sharp edges off where the hacksaw was cut through the bone. So it hasn't turned out too bad so far. Even with a hacksaw cutting through bone like this, and this is raw bone. It's been dried out for a while. Yeah, it's a little bit hard on the hands, but yeah, it hasn't turned out too bad. Alright, we'll see how we go. Okay folks, I've just shaped the handle on this. Smoothed it over a bit, taking all the jagged edges off it, and it's come up pretty well. It feels quite comfortable in the hand. As you can see there, you've got the honeycomb effect, so you can tell it's not a fully mature bone, but the handle's quite thick and it'll be strong enough. Now what I've got to do next is dress up the rest of the spine on this, clean it up, smooth it off a bit, and see how we go. I'm a little bit concerned about this side. Got a bit overzealous there with scraping off some of the sinew and stuff, so we'll see how we go. I'm leaving the cutting of the teeth till last because I actually have to grip this like that when I'm actually filing it, so makes it a lot easier and reduces the risk of breaking your teeth off if I start to get a little bit too rough with it. But no, it's coming up quite well. So moving on. Well folks, that cleaned up pretty nicely actually. It's, I had to use a 12-volt Dremel tool once or twice where I couldn't get a file in to clean it up, and as I said before, I haven't got the right rocks at the moment. That's still a project in progress. But as you can see, that's the basic comb there. Handle's quite round and smooth. It's a good comfortable grip. It's not too heavy. Yeah, it's a little bit bent there, so you can only can't comb straight here with it, obviously. No, just joking. Anyway, next part is to cut the teeth. Now, if I try and cut it, make the teeth too fine, there's a good chance that some of this bone's going to break off. The idea being is I'll use a hacksaw and try and cut it on the forward motion of the hacksaw rather than draw it back and take another bite at it, because it just might snap off. the bone. So what I'll do is on the ends here, I'll leave the bone a little bit thicker, like on a normal comb on both ends, and see how we go from there. Okay folks, I've just done the first 4 teeth with a hacksaw blade, and it's coming up pretty well. This particular thin type of bone is very easy to cut, but having said that, if you don't keep the hacksaw blade straight, there is a risk that it's going to snap off. Now perhaps his teeth are a little bit too long. Certainly the law of physics say that have him down about here, the teeth are going to be stronger, but the bone is much thicker down in that area too, so it gives a little bit more support along the spine of the comb. Now, I don't know if you can see it in shot here, that one there, second one I made. What I did was, using this knife blade needle file, was actually grind the sharp edges off the tip of the comb tooth there, so it just makes it a little bit easier to pass through the hair without actually snagging it, I hope, and actually doing any damage to your scalp or anything like that. So so far so good. That's 4 teeth done. Don't any more to go yet. See how we go, but none have snapped off. One of the things you're going to have to watch with bone combs, or any item for that matter, made out of bone, is that over time, as I mentioned before, they do deteriorate, dry out, and eventually crack. So when I finish this, I might even colour it a little bit, I think, using some natural colours. Then I'll give it a rub down with some a tallow I've got inside, just to moisten up the bone a bit, to slow down the ageing and drying process. Alright, we'll keep going and see how we go. Well folks, this is the day after making the bone comb. So I've asked Button-Nose to give it the acid test, a test run, and see what she thinks of it. See if there's any problems that may need to be rectified, and see where we go from there. So I'll hand it over.
Thank you. Hi guys, this is a comb that Dragon has made. I'm just going to give it a test.
I'll just get a close-up of that comb, just so that's it there. Yep.
Smells like bone still, but as you can see, I've got really thin hair, so it glides through quite nicely. So Dragon did mention beetroot juice to soak it in to get rid of the smell, because it has vinegar in it. But you block your nose, you can't smell a thing.
It's not pulling on your hair at all?
No, it's quite nice actually. It's happily surprised. So ladies, we can still do our hair if the world goes to shit.
And how's the handle on it? It's quite comfortable?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
I have to put, because my hair's thin, I have to hold it.
Yeah.
To put the comb through it.
I guess if it's wet hair, it'd be different. You know,
yeah.
So.
That's amazing. And it won't break as easy as the plastic shop bought ones.
Oh yeah, yeah, okay.
I would assume, because yeah, it's thicker. So.
All right.
Yeah, I'm very happily surprised. I have to add one to my bug out pack.
Yeah. Well,
ladies, put your orders in.
I'm not that good yet.
It's amazing. I
my
love
first
it.
attempt. Yeah. So yeah, that dark colouring on the end of it, folks, is just the colour of the bone. It was still a bit of blood on there as a raw bone, and as it's dried out, it's just turned black. So it probably gives it a bit of character, I guess. What I think I'll do, as Button-Nose said, is I'll dye it with beetroot juice. One, because it's got vinegar in it, might help get rid of some of the smell. It's still got the smell of the raw bone, and of course beetroot juice being red or close to purple will give it a bit of colour. Then after that's dried out, I'll give it a dose of either rendered fat or maybe some olive oil, just to preserve the bone a little bit and help slow the cracking and deteriorating process that's quite common with bone implements.
Very impressed, Dragon. That's awesome.
Well, that's good. That's good. I'll probably make them smaller, but I don't know. I just have a crack at this one and see. I'm glad it works very well actually, because I haven't got that much hair to try it on. Alright, thanks very much, Button Nose.
Thank you.
Well, back at home now, folks, after that last little bit of segment on Button Nose trying out the bone comb. What I've decided to do is just soak it in some beetroot juice, some homemade beetroot that we have preserved using vinegar. Now I've just put that in there, and as you can see, it's staining the bone quite well. A few chunky bits of beetroot in there, but that'll wash off later. So basically the bone comb is functional, and that was my main concern. But you can pretty it up, put all the bling on it, colour it. We're going into our winter months here, so as far as using vegetable colouring, mulberries comes to mind. If any of you have ever eaten mulberries, you know just how it stains your hands and your clothes and everything else, but they're out of season at the moment. But you can use lots of other food colourings, natural stuff, berries and that sort of thing, whatever you can find in your area in season at the time. Now, okay, it's a bone comb. Is a survival item? Well, in a sense, strictly speaking, no, not really. But it has applications for survival scenarios. One being, and first and foremost, is hygiene. People with hair that need to wash their hair as part of their hygiene process need to comb their hair, get all the knots and any other stuff that may be in there, seeds and grass and whatever the case may be. The other point is heaven forbid if we ever get this far down the track, they'll make a good barter item, particularly with the ladies. As we know, our ladies like to look after their hair. It gives them their individuality, and things like this would make a good barter item. You can also carve the handle and the bits and pieces, put a bit of bling on it, I suppose you could say, just to make it a bit more attractive, make a good gift for somebody, that sort of thing. So it's also a morale booster too, where people would turn around and use one of these things and use it to take care of their hair and do all sorts of things that people do with it. And it not only applies to the ladies but to the men too. I've been in situations out in remote areas where it's been a bit grotty, very dirty and dusty, and as I've mentioned before, water has been a premium price, barely enough to drink, let alone do anything else. And you finish up with a bit of a bird's nest in your hair. So even for the guys, just running a brush or a comb through your hair can do amazing things to your morale. So anyway, we'll let that soak for a few hours. That bone's colouring up quite nicely actually. And I'll wash it off and then just oil it down to slow down the aging process. So that's the comb there, and the sun there a bit. It's colouring up quite nicely actually. And to do all more ornate carving and that sort of thing, well, yeah, that's a bit beyond my experience at the moment. It's off in the Pegasus Galaxy, a long way away. I'm just sort of looking at functionality. So at that point alone, it's proved its point. It is functional. I don't know how it goes with wet hair, but anyway, it's better than nothing. So, all right, we'll see what happens next. Well, folks, it's been about an hour since I put this bone comb into the dye solution, the beetroot juice. It's come up pretty well. As you can see, the colour's not very consistent there in some places because the bone is not as porous as other parts of it. But all in all, it's come up pretty well. I also made a brush out of a branch or twig off one of our peach trees, just to give it a bit of a coating with the dye. So anyway, took it out of the soaking pan and rinsed it out under the tap, and for the most part, yeah, it's come up pretty well actually. You can see from my hands there, I don't know if you can see it there. Yeah, beetroot juice stains everything. The other thing is that because it had vinegar in it, it's reduced the bone smell quite a bit. So probably with a few hours more soaking, you probably get a much richer colour and a lot of reduction in the actual smell of the bone. Now what I decided to do was, down here I've got some old olive oil, and what I'll do then is paint the bone. Now I'm only working one-handed here, so I'll just give a bit of a demo. Just like that, over the whole lot, the teeth and everything. And it's probably a good idea to let it sit out in the sun for a little while so that the warmth heats the bone up and opens up the pores a bit, and it soaks in a bit better. So that's pretty well it, folks, as far as this goes. That's come up quite well. I'm quite happy with that. And every now and then, if it starts to dry out a bit, just hit it with a bit of I'm using olive oil here at the moment, but you can use tallow. Tallow rendered down doesn't have or very little smell to it. It's the tallow I rendered down for making the homemade candles in an earlier video series last year, I think it was. So yeah, the main thing is to keep it well oiled. Whether you use tallow or olive oil, I mean olive oil is not something you find growing on trees these days either. But I guess the basic idea is when you do a kill with an animal is to use as much of it as possible. I mean, this is only one implement. There's lots of other things. And what I am finding out is that certain parts, bones, parts of the animal are better suited for better applications than others. So that's been a huge learning curve for me. So I'll be back in a sec. Okay, working back the front, the shoulder bone or shoulder blade basically look like this. That's the way I got it from the butchers. I didn't go out and do a kill. I refused to do a kill just for the sake of videos. And as you can see, along this top edge here is a lot of cartilage, so that had to be cut off and left it outside for a while. This has been cleaned up quite a bit. We've had ants on it, a few birds and that sort of thing. Unfortunately, I didn't have... That just pulls off there. Let it dry out a bit. Yeah, Jetta. These dogs have been my best buddies since I started this. They've got plenty of bones of their own. There you go. Alright. In a previous video series on our retreat at BOL, I showed a red ant nest, or what we call meat ant here in Australia. They would have cleaned this bone up really, really nice. I probably would have had to sit shotgun on it for quite a while. Because we've got other predators out there that love to gnaw on bones, goannas and wild dogs, including my own. Look at you, eh? How can you look at those big brown eyes? Can you get much closer to it? Always hopeful, aren't you? Anyway, so there's quite a lot of time spent in cleaning up this bone. It probably took me the best part of 3 to 4 hours. And once you get to that stage, you've got a pretty clean bone here. Then you've got to work out what you've got to do with it. Stencil it, mark it with a pencil, whatever the case may be. That bone's pretty clean, although there's still some material stuff on here which you can take off with a file or a rock. And moving on, you finish up with this product. Now the actual separation, stencil cutting and all that from this bone to that took around about 2 to 3 hours. And that was using a combination of hand tools, rocks for grinding, mainly for the cleaning side of it, hand files, chisels to get the cartilage off the end of that bone, hacksaw, and as I mentioned earlier, I had to use a 12-volt Dremel grinder or drill twice to get into areas where I couldn't get a chisel or a file. So it's a combination of new and old tools there. That's just a knife blade needle file I was talking about, where I rounded off the end of the teeth on the comb. Okay, so no doubt some of these tools will be around, modern tools will be around for quite some time. The problem I've got, and many other people probably experience in their relative areas, is getting the right type of rocks if you want to go down to that stage. And it takes a lot of work doing it by rock. It's a skill, and what I've learned so far is only the tip of the iceberg. So anyway, without rambling on too much more, that's the comb there. Pretty much finished. I've got to put another coat of finish putting the olive oil on it just to slow down the deterioration process. So I'm quite happy with the way that turned out, and it's functional. As you saw in an earlier segment, Button-Nose used it on her hair, and there you go. Next project, still got some leg bone up there. Try and make some spear tips and other defensive hunting tools, or hunting tools, something like that anyway, but that could be a way off yet. So anyway, that's it folks. Thanks for watching. Open to comments and suggestions, and I've got to say it's been an experience working with this bone. Thank you.